Child's Play director on upgrading Chucky for the AI era. Director Lars Klevberg tells us about the challenges of putting a timely digital spin on a decidedly analog 80s horror. Remaking classic films can be a tricky business. There's a fine line to walk between changing the story so much you lose what made it work in the first place, and being so overly reverential to the original that you're left thinking, what's the point? Watch Child's Play 2019 trailer Evening Standard. Den of Geeks sat down with Klevberg to chat about Chucky's upgrade and putting a modern, tech-powered spin on an iconic 80s slasher. Child's Play is a movie series with a big legacy. What was it that convinced? I never saw myself making a Child's Play movie in my career. I have huge respect. Did that change of angle persuade you that you could bring something different to it? That was interesting for me, because it allowed me to create an antagonist in Chucky who was looking at the world for the very first time. His motivation, the AI aspect of it was really interesting for me. Spending time with, it's kind of like those news stories of Alexa devices randomly laughing. Do you think the idea? I don't think the general public is afraid of it. They buy into it. But AI is not dissimilar to a lot of things that potentially pose a threat to mankind. It's like when when you make a horror. Chucky is voiced brilliantly by Mark Hamill in the film. Why did you think he would be the perfect voice for him? When I read the script, I just saw Chucky as this tiny toddler walking around looking at the world for the very first time. His problem solved. I didn't cast the voice until ID wrapped shooting, but I knew very early on that I wanted someone who could help me create this dynamic and complex character. Mark is a terrific. The film walks a fine line between comedy and horror. Is that a hard balance to get right? Yeah, I think that was the most difficult thing on this movie. Aside from shooting it. When I read it you've gone for more of a practical effects approach rather than heavy CG. Was that something you insisted on from the start? Yeah. It was a risk. It's a big canvas, and I need the audience to believe it's real, because then they can have a proper reaction to it, rather than their brain either consciously or subconsciously thinking, there's something wrong with this. If it doesn't feel. Child's Play is out in cinemas now. Gallery from Chucky to Annabelle, the all-time freakiest dolls in horror. USA Today.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.